Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell us about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Heidi Wilkins, and I am the Outreach and Education Coordinator at the Diversity Council here in Rochester.
So can you tell me some more about the Diversity Council, like when it was formed, what you do, and how you got involved with it?
Sure. So we are actually celebrating our 31st year. So we've been around
Nice.
for a long time, way before a lot of diversity councils were formed. And so we were actually formed after a group of just citizens in Rochester were doing some work on discipline disparities and achievement gaps within the public school system 30 years ago. It kind of evolved from there and became a nonprofit. So we do a lot of work with clearly, diversity, inclusion. We have a few programs. One is called Equity Logic, and that is more of a fee-for-service education system that we go into corporations and different businesses to talk about diversity. And then we do a lot of work within the school districts and school systems with teachers, with students. We have several programs that we talk about all kinds of issues. One of my favorites, is called Student Leaders Creating Change, where we talk about all sorts of issues from equal health care to religion to how to be a good ally. So we're doing a lot of different things. And then one of the other things is we do a lot of convening for different groups. So we'll bring different people together, different businesses together, different organizations together, whether that's for community conversations or to join resources or to share information. We
Awesome.
stay busy.
Yeah. So what made you want to get involved in this organization?
Sure. So after Michael Brown was killed, my husband and I planned a protest in Rochester, which we thought was just going to be like a real quick run-of-the-mill protest, and we had such a good show out and people wanting to figure out like what can we do in Rochester, that we formed a group called Rochester for Justice, which is a civil rights advocacy group. And so we were doing a lot of equality work with that group. I actually was, I came up in the hospitality business, so my time in Rochester I spent as an event planner. And so I was doing a lot of event coordination, working 70 hours a week or so. And then on top of that, I was doing activist work along with my husband. After I had my daughter, I was at home on maternity leave. And just, I love planning events, but there was just too much going on. And while I was on maternity leave, I found out that there was an opening at the Diversity Council, and Dee and myself had done a lot of work together, just, in the community. So I called her up and asked if she'd be interested in having me. And of course she interviewed some other people, but we realized that, it was going to be a really, really good fit. So I've been there for about 3 years. I started as the Equity Logic manager there, but then we realized that my skills were utilized more in organizing and in the school district. So I love it. I can't imagine, especially in these times, to be working, really anywhere else.
Okay. Can you tell me about something really impactful that you've witnessed as doing part of this work with the Diversity Council?
One thing that we did, so I was on the board, the Racial Equity Advisory Team through the school district, which was a community-led organization. And we did a lot of, going back to our beginnings too, we did a lot of work with discipline disparities and the achievement gap, and kind of where go-between between the school board and the community. And so that was a lot of work and a lot of effort over several years. And that group has since disbanded after a lot of careful consideration. But the one thing that came out of that work from being a Diversity Council representative in that group was we are now working alongside Rochester Public Schools with the youth education program. So we're doing student leaders creating change there. We're doing some ally classes for younger students called Stand Up Student. So we've been doing that in several of the public schools here. And now the staff, the administrators and principals of all of the school districts are doing work with the intercultural, the IDI, and doing like group work around that. So for me, that's a giant win. Because again, that's my passion, right? Making sure that our kids have equal access.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was a lot of years of work and communication. And so that feels like, just a giant, not a win, but like, it feels like great success and that we're actually moving the dial.
That's awesome. So if I notice right now that people are starting to be more interested in listening and hearing and learning and growing, what are some resources that are available to Rochester residents through the council?
Sure. So we have several, and kind of our motto right now is listen, learn, act. Right. And of course, right now, especially in the last couple of weeks, there's been, we're fielding so many questions. What can I do? How can I be involved?
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of things. If you go onto the Diversity Council's webpage, there's a whole section of like resources, reading materials, websites that you can get on. So I would start there. You can also send us an email and we will put you on our e-news, and that will give you a whole list, especially right now. It's a lot of information. COVID-19 information, as well as how to participate in peaceful protesting. So that will all be in our e-news. So if you were to send info@diversitycouncil.org, we can get you on our mailing list. And it really is, just a giant resource of information. I think the other things that you can do are really just on your own doing Google research about books to read. Reading White Fragility is a really, really good start.
Yes.
And so there's so many resources out there. There's a lot of reading lists that are floating around Facebook and Google right now of like a whole list of books that will give you knowledge. Yeah, definitely. Dialogue is definitely key. I think calling out racism when you see it is hard if you've never done it before. But even baby steps and knowing that you're going to do it wrong sometimes, and
Right.
Being okay with doing it wrong and learning
Mm-hmm.
is definitely important. The Diversity Council also has a program called Allies and Advocates, and what that does is it trains adults. We have programs for kids too, but adults on how to be the best ally possible. And we actually do it mostly in churches. It's a free program.
Great.
Yeah, it's a free program. We ask for donations because it does take staff time. But it kind of talks about how to not just going after the aggressor, because that's people's first instinct, right? Like you see a situation happening and you want to be like, hey, stop, don't do that anymore. And though that's valid, bringing the person that was targeted back into the mix and making sure that they're feeling comfortable and not left alone in that is really crucially important. So we have a program that teaches you how to do that. It's like 2 hours. And we come in and we give you tips, and then we work through actual scenarios. And before we come in, we will like ask the people that are attending, like, have you dealt with a situation that you didn't know what to do? And you walked away going, I should have done something, or, I did it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so people can send in things that we can come in and be like, okay, there's this, we already got this scenario, and we can work through it in like real life ways. So that's another really good one. I could go on and on. We have lots of different things. The last two I would like to say is if you go on the Diversity Council webpage, Facebook page, Rochester NAACP or Rochester for Justice, all of those Facebook pages have, we came together and we did a Remembering George Floyd virtual community vigil. And it's about 90 minutes long. And it gives you, it's good just to be a part of it, right? But it also gives you tips on how to move things forward. There's 11 minutes at the end where we read the names of Black and people of color who have been killed only since Trayvon Martin, and it's 11-minute long list. So sharing that, it's very powerful. And we also read their mothers' names, right? To humanize them, right? It's this list of names that people are like, they hear them, and then when you hear like, they're people with parents. So that's in the whole dialogue, but then we have taken that section out that you can share as well, just for people who maybe aren't paying attention to pay attention. So that's up there, and then we're also starting on June 11th. On June 11th at 6 p.m., we are going to be having a virtual town hall. We have the mayor, the police chief, county and city administrators. I believe the sheriff is going to be in attendance, and then the county and city attorneys. Nice. And we're going to have a virtual dialogue about policy. What does policy change look like? What are your policies that you have around lots of different things, mostly policing? So that, like I said, will be at 6 o'clock on June 11th. And then we're actually turning that into a series. So we plan on having kind of the same conversation with the school district, with some of our local government officials. So there's a lot of ways to stay connected. And again, if you were to send an email, we'll get you on the email page, or the email list, so you can see them in real life.
Yeah. info@diversitycouncil.org, right?
Yep.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. What are your hopes for the future in Rochester with the work that you're doing?
Honestly, if I were to be worked out of a job, I would be okay with that. I would find something else to do.
Yes.
Like the really what would be the best possible thing is that we didn't need the Diversity Council anymore. We don't need Rochester for Justice because we're done. I don't see that happening. I think I'm going to have a job for a really long time. But if we were to change some policies, if we were to change, there's a statute right now. I will give you the number. You can all look it up. It's statute 609.066. And that deals with the deadly force policy in Minnesota, right? And it talks about the duty to retreat. If we could work on getting that changed, that would be a giant step. But there's lots of things. If we could provide equal access to our kids in the school district, I would be pretty happy about that too.
Amazing. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything you'd like to share or add?
I don't think that I do. I really do encourage people to tune in on the 11th. I think we're getting the big players in. And we're going to ask them the hard-hitting questions. We're not going to say, how do you feel about things? We're going to say, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And if you're not doing it, when are you going to do it? And we want a commitment. So I think that's a good one. And like I said, we're gonna have more of those. We have done them in the past, but we're living in a whole different world right now. So.
Right. And people are paying attention in ways that they haven't in a really long time. It's opened up dialogue and discussion that people haven't been able to have or haven't realized needs to happen.
Yeah. I think one of the other things that is critically important for people is I am one, when I'm not wearing my Diversity Council hat, that is I'm happy to shut down streets. I am happy to put myself in the middle of a protest. I am not doing that right now because we can't forget that we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
And so my mom sent me a message this morning, like, I was going to go to this protest and I feel really bad because I'm not going to go. And I'm like, Mom, I'm not even doing that. Okay, there's other ways to do the work from the safety of your own home. If you're older, if you're immune suppressed, if you just don't feel comfortable, get online, find resources, do the work from your house. There's lots of ways to do that. You do not have to hit the streets. If you want to, awesome. You don't have to do that right now. And there's a lot of people who have been doing that in the past. They're just like, it's not safe right now for them. And so it's okay. It's okay not to march down Broadway.
Thank you again so much, Heidi. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for your work. You do good work, and I'm just really grateful for you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you so much for having me.